Hello everybody, Countdown VHS here with a little announcement regarding the preview campaign for the Wainriders mod. For those of you who are completely unaware, this project that I'm talking about today is a small mini campaign that I hacked together using elements from older versions of the 4th Age Total War, as well as some newer elements from the upcoming mod Total War Wainriders that you may have been following over the past several years on the channel. This mod was a sort of personal project that I decided to embark on as progress continued, but began to slow a little bit for Total War Wainriders. I thought, geez, there's all these units that look fantastic that Weba84 has put together, really cool unit cards, unit symbols that Valor has done up. I wonder if I could, just for myself, drop those into a smaller map with fewer factions that I could easily handle as a modder, because I don't have a ton of experience as a modder working with all of the files. I've done it before in various, sort of amateur attempts that I've made on my own, but I've never, sort of released a mod. This is the first real thing, I guess, that I've put out there, at least for Rome Total War. So that's what this mod is. I'm calling this Wars of the Wainriders. This is, I may refer to it elsewhere as the preview campaign, and it uses a sort of a half map of Middle-earth. So roughly the most northerly part of this campaign map is, well, we can actually see the image here, kind of. So here's Gondor, right, if you can sort of see. It goes up to part of the Sea of Rune. It goes up to about Lorien, about the southern eaves of Mirkwood, right? So you've got essentially the southern half of Middle-earth on this campaign. And I thought this map was particularly fitting, especially for a quick and easy version for me to put together, because this is the theater that was most relevant to the Wainrider invasions. And I thought I could get in a lot of the kind of the most important factions and units that were directly related to those conflicts, and it would be something that I could essentially do. So I don't want to go over all of the features on this mod. I've touched on different elements of them in prior videos. You can go back and look at those. What I want to do today is, hopefully in a relatively brief span of time, calibrate expectations. One, as I've said before, this is an amateur effort by someone who has been around modding for a lot of years and has tweaked things and done sort of his own stuff. But this is an experiment that I intended as a personal project, and then as it went along and I realized that it was functional, I thought maybe other people would want to see it. To that end, what you can expect is a mod that is very much built on the bones of the New Shadow. And again, the New Shadow was a mod for Rome Total War Barbarian Invasion. It's an earlier version of the 4th Age Total War that was released, I want to say, in 2006, 2008-ish. And this mod is very different. This version of 4th Age Total War, the New Shadow, is very different from Dominion of Men, which is the current, most recent version of 4th Age Total War. A lot of mechanics got added in for Dominion of Men that are not existing in the New Shadow. And so a lot of stuff you may be familiar with from the most recent version of 4th Age Total War does not show up here. So a lot of the complex traits, a lot of the complex mechanics are just not present in this mod. That could be, obviously it's a negative in a lot of ways, right? Because Eridan did a fantastic job modding all these very cool and thematic features. On the other hand, you could look at this as just a very different experience. And that's certainly what I look at the New Shadow as. I still play the New Shadow, just that vanilla version of 4th Age Total War occasionally, because it does, I think, still stand on its own. I mean, certainly visually, the map is very different. There's been a lot of work done on the 4th Age map over the years, not just extending the size of the map, but extending, the quality and adding little cool features. But for me, what attracts me to this mod, and really to any mod, is not only the visual quality and the fidelity, but it is how that mod evokes a certain experience. And I think the New Shadow provides a faster, quicker, more action-packed, you could say, shorter campaign, right? Fourth Age Total War, the newer version, Dominion of Men, is good for sort of a long burn, right, in my opinion. That's when you can really just sort of get into the weeds, get into the mechanics, do all that role-playing, and sort of take your time and enjoy all the feature-rich environment that all the talented people involved in Dominion of Men worked on. And so, like the new Shadow, I intend this mod to be a faster, kind of lighter experience. Okay, so that's that. However, there are some flaws. There are some problems. Some people on the Discord have already pointed out some things that I'd like to change in upcoming versions, and that's the other part of this announcement, that this is not intended as the final version. I would like to do a little more work on this and get it polished up some more, address some balancing issues, address some of the rougher aspects of it that I didn't either really feel confident in addressing or didn't maybe know how completely. You'll notice some things. There are some inconsistencies regarding some text messages, apparently, that do refer to Fourth Age type things. This mod, of course, is set in the Wainrider invasions, so I probably should have led with that. This mod takes place in the 19th century of the Third Age. So this is like 1,000 years before the War of the Ring. This is when the Wainriders invaded out of the east and gave Gondor a headache for like 100 years. And so there are, if you see references to Fourth Age type things, those should not be in there, and those are things I'd like to get rid of. The other aspect is some balance issues. Again, I'm not super experienced with balancing. What I tried to do here was hope that everything kind of hung together based on the inertia from either the new Shadow or the preliminary stats that were worked up for the new units for the Wainriders mod. I sort of threw those things together, and I noticed, okay, there are some big differences in like unit cost or maybe defense stats between those two sort of design philosophies, and I tried to kind of smoosh them together by hand. Now, there is a tool for this that Eridan has created, but because of the I don't know what you call it, but the fallacy of not wanting to learn a new thing because it's hard and requires effort, and so therefore you do it the old stupid way, even though it takes way longer and actually involves much more effort. I'm sure there's a name for that fallacy. That's the one that I'm committing here. I'm just thinking, okay, I can open up the edu text file and just sort of address the stats by hand and edit them by hand. And of course, that's the wrong way to do it, right? There are really wonderful tools out there that can be used to do this much more efficiently. I haven't approached those yet. So if you see anything that's really egregious, it would be awesome for you to let me know somehow. Probably the best way to do that, I guess you can leave a comment here, can't you, right? On ModDB, I guess you can leave comments on this. Another way to do this would be to check out the Fourth Age Discord. There's going to be there is a channel for the Wainriders, or a couple potentially, on that server. You can also leave comments on my videos. I'll probably be dipping into this mod a little bit here and there, just to sort of talk about some things. One thing that stands out to me that was pointed out is the Wains. Someone pointed out on the Discord that the Chariot models are really strong. And yes, they are. I played around with that because with Chariots you have two options. Well, there's really three, but it feels like there's only two. It's either they are useless and a total joke, or they are really overpowered and they steamroll things, right? And so it's really hard to get the Goldilocks porridge version of Chariots in Rome Total War, where they're challenging and scary but still beatable, just because of the way these units work. Now, of course, for a mod that's focused on the Wainrider period, in a period which is defined by the chariots of the chieftains of the Wainriders, who are described as just bowling over ranks of Gondorian infantry. Granted, infantry that's not fully formed up into a defensive line, as we learned from the 1944 Battle of Andoher. But nevertheless, the impression I get from the lore is that the chariots of the Wainriders are supposed to be very formidable and frightening. So I addressed that as I could by increasing their stats. And then one stat that I played with a lot was mass. And you're going to see them throwing people around on the battlefield. And, you know, this is the Waynes here are going to behave in some ways a little more like maybe vanilla Rome Total War Chariots, where if you get a good charge and they don't get bogged down, they can do a lot of damage. But they're tougher than those Chariots, right? They're not going to immediately fall when they get stopped, but that will be the best way to beat them. So do be aware of that. I'm really curious about about the balancing of those units. Of course, that's something that we will get to addressing with Total War Wainriders, but where we're still at the stage of implementing campaign stuff, that's down the line. Sort of addressing those things are way down the line. The other thing, apart from individual unit stats, that I am really wanting to fix is campaign balance. So if you want to start up this mod and play around with some factions just to sort of have fun and see how things work, I would probably recommend some of the larger factions. Like Gondor would probably be reasonable. Either of the two Wainrider factions would be pretty reasonable. But the smaller factions, and I'm thinking especially the Orcs here, are going to be a hard time. The Orcs are, in fact, a one province faction. They've got extremely limited building options, and they're surrounded by people who hate them, and their culture is different, right? So it's kind of a nightmare playing as the Orcs. Play the Orcs, I guess, if you want to have a few fun battles, and then probably quit the campaign. If you can have a successful run at the Orcs, that's great. You might be able to do that, but I just don't know how fun it would be. So I am actually eager to get a little feedback on them. They're kind of a weird faction. You could argue that they shouldn't even be here because really they're only just kind of shoehorned into a part of the Misty Mountains that barely appears on the map. The victory conditions for them are going to involve, capturing land in northwestern Mordor, I guess, like in mountain regions and things. So theoretically, it could be possible to play as them, but I think the economy and the public order issues are going to be really, really challenging for them. You may also have trouble with the Aotheod, right? This the green and white horse faction, right? These are the ancestors of the Rohirrim, and they are playable. They have a very, very small presence on the map, and again, that's part of the issue. They start with a single province up in the middle Anduin. Because I am using the Rome Total War, vanilla original game. So they need to start somewhere. I didn't want to start them off as a horde. That didn't seem quite appropriate. They're fun to take part in the initial Battle of the Plains, and that is something that I also wanted to point out. The Battle of the Plains is something you can do here. It's a little scenario that I've set up where if you're playing as Gondor or as the Western Horde, which is this orangey faction with the horse, or the Aotheod, all those three factions have armies that are present right next to each other north of Dagorlad, and sort of in the southeastern corner of the Brownlands, I guess. That's where it seemed reasonable to say the Battle of the Plains occurred. This was a battle that took place in the year 1856, and we don't know very much about this battle other than it presumably took place in relatively flat open terrain, and it saw the death of Narmakil, the second, I want to say, king of Gondor. So he was killed. His army was not entirely annihilated, but it was severely beaten, and the Aotheod, after the battle, essentially gave up trying to recapture Rhovanion and settled in the Anduin Vales. So this battle is set up in favor of the Wainriders, but it's still possible to win. If you're playing as the Aotheod, in that battle you'll have just a few cavalry units, essentially. You'll have a very small contingent, but you can really use those effectively to get a victory for your allies, Gondor. Gondor can win, but it may be tough, and the Wainriders can win. And this is really a tough battle for everybody involved, but I was very sort of excited that I could get that in there, but you won't know it exists unless I tell you. So just be aware. Picking those three factions might be a fun way to see some of the new units. Now, not all of the units are new. I did retain a lot of the old Gondorian units from the new Shadow, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is just nostalgia. The other is in the loading screens that you will see in this mod, I kept all the old loading screens from the new Shadow. They have a unified aesthetic. I thought it was easier just to keep them than to do different things, and I thought, well, let's just have the units for Gondor match the Gondorian units that appear in those old loading screens. So kind of for consistency, I kept them in. There are some new units in Gondor, but you'll have to wait for the full version of Total War Wainriders to see all of those new units that Webba created. What else about the mod? I think that's basically it. Be aware if you play one of the smaller factions, you might have a hard time. Umbar, I do have it on authority that someone is currently giving Umbar a shot and having a decent time of it, which is nice to hear. I imagine Khand would probably be a good one to play as well. Really, give any of them a shot. Just be aware this is a work in progress. So let me know what you think. A last word about the attribution of this mod. This is, I don't see where it's where the authorship is indicated, but fourth age development team, I believe, is the authorship. Yes, yeah, developer, fourth age development team. Now, this caused me a little bit of hesitation. How should I attribute this mod, right? What I could have done was given myself some name, or just put Count MRVHS, I guess, as the developer, but that didn't feel appropriate because all of the cool stuff that is in this mod was not made by me. In other words, I didn't make really any of the units. At best, I sort of dismounted some units from some places or grabbed them from another source. I wrote the text, I put the factions together, but I didn't do this stuff. So because this is built on a fourth age mod, the new Shadow, and built by the other members of the fourth age development team, like Webba and Valor, all their stuff is all through this. I thought it did make the most sense to keep it as this. And so my only hesitation was because this is such a preliminary effort, right? It is not polished like a lot of the fourth age development team's mods are, right? The design philosophy for a lot of those mods has been you get them as polished as you can and you release them. I clearly went with a different route because I just wanted to get this thing out. So I hope the guys on the team don't mind that too much, but I want to give them credit for the good work, and I'm hoping that all of you who play the mod will recognize that as such, that the errors and the foibles are my own, and I hope you can enjoy the really good work that was put in by Webba and Valor and everyone else who contributed to the earlier versions of the mod that appear here. But yes, so please let me know how you find things. I hope to see you on Discord. Feel free to leave a comment here if you give the mod a shot, and have a good one. Take care until the next video.